Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Spline Starter Series. In this episode, we'll discuss states and events and show you how to create animations and add interactivity to your object. We'll begin by working on a simple cube to demonstrate how states and events work, then apply the same principles to our keyboard. Let's get started by creating a cube. On the right-hand side in the Properties panel, you'll see a State section. Click the plus button to add a state. Now you have two states, the base state, which is the state your object is already in, and the second state, where you can add changes. For example, you can change the position, scale, or rotation of your object. If you click on the base state, you revert the object to its original position, scale, and rotation. This is the foundation for adding interactivity. However, if you go to play mode, nothing happens yet because we need something to trigger the animation. To trigger the animation from the base state to the second state, we need an event. In the Events section, click the plus button to add a new event. At the top of the Events section, you'll see options for triggering the animation. You can choose different types of triggers, but for now, we'll stick with Start, which means the animation will play when the scene starts. In the Action section, you have plenty of options as well, but we'll use the Transition option, which makes the object transition between multiple states. Here, you can choose your states of animation and set the duration of the transition. We'll use the base state for the first one and the new state for the second, with a transition time of 1 second. You can also customize the animation curve. We'll choose the default Ease Out option for now. Now, if you enter play mode, you'll see the animation start because we set the event to trigger at the start of the scene. You can change this to other triggers like mouse up, where the animation plays when you click on the object and release the mouse button. We won't cover other triggers in this session, but we'll explore them in future tutorials. With this basic setup, you can add interactivity to any object. Now, let's go to the keyboard scene and add animation to it. First, we'll add a clicking animation to the buttons. Once we're finished, we'll add the texture change of the floor to them. Let's add interactivity to the Escape button first. In the Properties panel, create another state for it and move it down slightly. In the Events section, create an event and choose Mouse Down for the button. In the Actions section, use the Transition option. For the transition, set the base state for the first one and the new state for the second. Now, if we go to play mode and click the button, you can see it moves down. But there are two issues. The animation duration is too long, and the button doesn't return to its original position when clicked. To fix this, we'll first reduce the animation duration. Then we'll add a third transition to make the button return to its original position. Now, if we click the Escape button, it moves faster and returns to its original position. However, it only works once. To make it repeat each time, we need to change the mode to Repeat. Now, when we are in play mode, the Escape button will work every time we click on it. We'll apply the same steps to the other keyboard buttons. Add another state, move the button down, add an event, choose Mouse Down, and set the transition mode to Repeat. At the third transition, adjust the transition time to 0.2 seconds and test it. It works perfectly. Now we do this for the remaining buttons. Now that all our buttons have interactivity, let's test them to ensure they work correctly. Everything is functioning well. Perfect. Next, we'll discuss changing the floor texture when we click each button. To do this, select the rectangle and rename it to Floor for clarity. In the Properties panel, we'll add several states, each with a different floor texture. Create a new state, go to the opacity section, and change the opacity of the pattern and color layer to 0. This creates the first pattern. Let's rename it. We'll do the same step to create another texture. First, duplicate the state and change the opacity again to 0 so we can see the next texture. Now we rename the state. Let's repeat this for all the buttons. With our state set, we can create the interaction. As we discussed, when a button is clicked, it should trigger a floor texture change. So let's select a button and add an event to it. Select mouse down for its trigger and choose the transition. This time, set the target to the floor and change the mode to repeat. Keep the current state for the first transition, but change the second state to correspond to the button, such as happy. Also, set the transition time to 0.1 seconds. Now, if we go to play mode and click the happy button, the floor texture changes. Let's do the same for other buttons. We can use the event we just created and apply it to another button. Copy the event and paste it to another button. Then change the second transition. For this one, change the state to mad. Now, in play mode, clicking the happy button changes the floor texture to happy, and clicking the mad button changes the texture to mad. Let's repeat this for the other buttons. Now that we have created all the events, let's test the buttons to ensure everything works perfectly. As you can see, it works perfectly. That brings us to the end of this episode. In the next one, we'll dive into the Export tab and get our scene ready to share. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and click the bell icon to get notified about future tutorials.